Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford.
And I'm also here, Ashley K. Smalls.
Hi, Ashley, you're back.
Yes, I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I'm glad you're.
Well,
I'm glad you've come back to me.
I won't even. Just be careful of the stuff you take, guys. That's all I'm gonna. But we have two guests with us today. First up, we have writer and news editor for Collider.
Hi, I'm Arezou Amin.
Hi, Arezou. And we also have senior TV writer for IndieWire,
Proma Khosla.
Hi, I am so glad to have you all here. We're here to talk Miss Marvel episode 5. Also, I kept saying episode 4 was today. I don't know, my brain is getting like mixed up with like what I'm like, oh, next week is the finale, isn't it? So what did we all like? Usually I start off the top. I have everyone say what they thought of this episode, and I have the guests say like what they've thought of the series so far. Proma, do you want to go first? Like, what did you overall think of this episode, and like how have you felt about the series so far?
Sure. I think it's hard for me to be objective about any part of the series, to be honest. And this episode especially. I have been so completely blown away by this show from the very beginning, top to bottom, every single aspect of it, the South Asian representation and culture and just the authenticity of the writing, of Kamala's character and her family and everything about it, weaving in the MCU in a way that feels really organic and almost to the point of me being like, I wish we didn't have to worry about the MCU and we could just have like this teen hanging out, living her life. Yeah. But then this episode in particular, like going back to India in the 1940s to the partition, like this is something that's very close to me and to my family history, especially. So I'm still recovering from seeing that portrayed in the MCU on Disney Plus. Like that is incredible. And we'll talk about it so much, but I think they did a really good job of touching upon it without going into kind of gory, traumatic detail, which is very much a possibility with this subject, but kind of the writers and the creative team keeping that slightly at bay while sharing it with the audience of like, this was a horrible, traumatic thing that a lot of people went through. And we're not gonna lay it out for you. We're not gonna rehash a lot of the intricate pain of that, but we're going to tell you about it. We're going to share it with you, and then we're going to step away and go back to the story. Did I answer the question?
No, you did. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Did I answer the question? Arezou, what did you think?
I feel very much like Proma did. I love this series. I think it's my favorite Marvel series, full stop. Definitely one of my favorite stories that they've told in phase 4, if not my favorite. I want to see how like the finale, if it sticks the landing, I want to see. But for now, it is my favorite story for phase 4. And this episode, I think, was my favorite episode of the series so far. I think it's the best paced. I think it's just, it kind of pulls you in with like this big, large scale, very traumatic event, but it turns it into a very personal story without kind of turning it into trauma porn, which I think some people can do sometimes. It doesn't cross that line, at least in my mind. So yeah, I absolutely adored the episode. It did not feel its runtime. It felt way too short. I would have happily watched a whole movie about Aisha and Hassan. Like, genuinely would have watched a 3-hour movie just about those two. So
this episode did feel short, right? It really did.
Yeah, and it's the same length as everything else. It's 45, 46 minutes, but it really didn't feel it.
Yeah, because I was saying this. I don't think I in my brain I didn't check the time, but I really thought, oh, this episode was definitely like 10 minutes shorter, but I guess it wasn't. Yeah, and you both bring up a really good point of like, I thought as someone who like I didn't know much about partition going into this, I think they like do a good job of like teaching folks like me who maybe don't know as much without it being trauma porn. Because I feel like, especially when like something bad happens to like a specific community and then it's portrayed, it can very easily veer into trauma porn, right? Like if they're trying to show it for an audience that knows and also maybe doesn't know, sometimes like stuff like that can very easily. And I thought from my point of view, it did feel very like respectful and not just being like suffering, everyone dies. And I thought, and hands up, I will say, I'm not usually that big on like any kind of flashback origin, but I think what worked really well, especially for this, was that it was a character we had at least seen, and we like had heard of we've been hearing about her the entire run, right? So you like were interested and more invested, and the fact that it was half the episode, not the full thing. I don't know, and like Aisha was already. I felt like the thing I liked about her was that she already like was. It wasn't like it was kind of like her family origin, not her origin, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was already like comfortable in who she was, and I liked that. I don't know if that did that like work for all of y'all. Like, you know, we didn't really see her like where she came from or getting her powers or anything. It was like she was already her, which I like, but I don't know if you guys felt differently.
I liked it because I think it works for Kamala's story. Yeah. Because where Aisha came from only matters in as much as that veil is opening between her world and ours. It doesn't matter sort of how does Aisha know how to use the bangle? Where did she learn how to manipulate her power? Like, that's an awesome story in and of itself, but it doesn't matter to Kamala's story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we still don't know that much about the clandestines, but what we do know is that like, this is Kamala's great grandmother. And that's really all that matters to her is the personal connection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what helped me, at least, because again, I'm such a hard sell on a like flashback episode that like doesn't contain our main character. Like I'm such a grump when it comes to that in like sci-fi stuff. Like I remember I like didn't see, God, what the hell is it? Batman Begins. I was like, oh, I don't want to see him become Batman. And then like eventually I saw it and I was like, all right, well, at least the origin stuff was just like the first half hour. But yeah, no, I thought the two actors were like the Hassan and Aisha, the actors who played them, were really great. And they're like very famous Bollywood actors, right?
I've never seen this woman in my life.
Really?
I'll look her up right now. I've never seen her in anything. However, Hassan, well, she's also, I think they're both like Pakistani actors. He has made more of a mainstream Bollywood leap. Okay. But it's interesting. I don't know if this is the time to get into it, but Fawad Khan, who plays Hassan, was getting into Bollywood, was getting very big in Bollywood, and I would say like 2014 to 16 era. And then there was kind of a movement in Bollywood. Well, not in Bollywood, but like in the Indian government, which is like Hindu nationalist, not great situation. But where basically they were like, we need to do everything in-house, and effectively made Muslim actors and Pakistani actors feel pretty alienated from the industry. And so Fawad Khan like went back to Pakistan and was like, great, I'm going to keep acting here and killing it here because I'm great at this. And hasn't really been seen in Bollywood for several years now. So I had not seen him since like the last movie I saw him in like 2016. And it was so nice to see him back because he's just a phenomenal actor and just a beautiful, beautiful man.
I've seen a lot of thirst tweets.
One of them might have been mine.
Well, I have done the worst tweet of my life in context of this episode, and I'm so sorry to anyone who saw that. Thank you all for inviting me on this podcast, despite me having tweeted that.
Wait, now I need what was it?
I tweeted about like generational trauma and thirst in the same swoop. It's like me feeling emotional about my grandfather leaving Lahore during partition, but also being like, is Fawad Khan zaddy?
Listen, you have the range. There's nothing wrong.
And I was like, it's all very personal to me. I can definitely comment on that. But it's interesting because Hassan also has comments in the episode. Like he had lines that I wrote down where he's like, why should I leave? Just because I'm Muslim? And that's literally what happened to this actor decades later.
Shit. Huh. That is wild. Ashley, what'd you think of like the two of them?
I think maybe someone else may have already had this thought. I kind of wish they had separated the episodes and had one strictly focused on Aisha. And even with Kamala in the scene and us finding out that it was her, like that's, but like we basically have been hearing about this moment all season, right? And known the foreshadowing about like how it's going to be relevant to the story. So I feel like just giving it its own episode would have been would have been fine. So that's probably I think I would have to say it's arguably my favorite episode, even though I'm still a sucker for like the first 2 episodes that were still really like high school centric and her being a superhero, but like still a kid. Like it was such a big difference from what we've seen from the other shows. But this was really nailing in on how Kamala's heritage, like strictly in terms of her bloodline, but then also like, as someone who's Pakistani, how that affects her and how it makes, who she is. If anything, also, unfortunately, it did make me think about Falcon and Winter Soldier again, because all I could think was, damn, why didn't they do a flashback scene of Isaiah Bradley going through that bullshit instead of, like it just truly shows like, I think
that's true. I hadn't thought about that. You're right, Ashley. That would have been.
Right. I would even argue he should have honestly had his own episode, because it's like, how are you going to do a show about, not the first, but about a Black Captain America and then not really, go into the racial aspects of that. And so that being said, though, and I've basically been saying it since episode 1, that they're doing a much better job of handling race in this show. And like even this is a really good example of it. So I would probably say this was my favorite episode so far of the series.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
Do you think that has anything to do with kind of I don't want to say hand-holding, but implicitly it is kind of hand-holding that Falcon and the Winter Soldier had to do with having Sam and Bucky both as leads? Because on this we have like Kamala's the lead, her friends, her community, everything, her world is
around her, and it's possible. I think you could argue that. I mean, even with Bucky, I was kind of disappointed because like Bucky was born during segregation, and then went on to live in a not just predominantly but strictly Black country that welcomed him in. I honestly still feel some type of way that they didn't have a better conversation about race around him too, because it's like, how do you live that type of a life and not, they just gave him like a moment in the last episode. Yeah, we didn't think about what it meant for a Black man. You remember when he had to go to separate bathrooms, Bucky? So like,
That's true.
not to go into a different not to bring it back up, but like, it even with him, I think they could have done a better job of handling that, because that's really what the series was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about, race, along with some other aspects that still are impacted by race. And I'm never going to get over them having them cops corner Sam Wilson. I'm just never going to get over it.
It was just like, I remember with Falcon and the Winter Soldier at the end feeling very much like, we skimmed the surface.
I'm never going to get over it every episode, I think. And you know why? But I think it just really also shows, just to bring it back to the topic, that I'm honestly kind of jealous. They're doing such a much better job of showing, they're doing such a better job around having a conversation around race in this show without even having to bring up race. Like, not like I feel like they try to do it too on the nose with Captain America, and like here from the scene from the scene where oh my gosh, Kamala's friend, when she had to call out
Nakia.
Yeah. When Nakia had to call out damage control when they came through. Place of worship. Like, that was a conversation around race just as much as it was religion. And they did a much better job with that in that one scene than, what we've gotten in the past. So it's like, I think they just, even these like little, I don't want to say subtle because nothing was like necessarily subtle about it, but it's just like, you don't have to have some big moment of like, oh my God, they're targeting me because of, I'm Black, or because of, you don't have to do that, because like there are ways in which Black and brown people have to deal with this every day that isn't someone just coming up to us and saying, why are you Black? Right.
Right. And I think that's kind of what I mean by the dilution of it, is that like when you are with your Black and brown friends, you don't have to answer for it. You exchange a look, a comment, and you just kind of get it. But because Sam is with Bucky, he often has to be like, hey, do you know what just happened? Do you know why it happened? Can I tell you about a thing called racism?
Yeah.
That's a lot of like work that he shouldn't have to do, but that he did in that show had to do.
Yeah.
I love the idea of be like, hey, Bucky, have you heard of racism? Because
he has heard of it.
Yeah. So we open and we kind of learn that Aisha was already on the run, which a little bit confused me for a second, because I was like, oh, is this, I thought we were like getting the like partition scene. Like I thought she was like running to get her daughter. But this was just her on the run. So we like, and we learn that she is mostly on the run. She's hiding from the clandestines, right? She doesn't want to be with them. And I actually thought her and Hassan's meet cute was very cute, right?
Mm-hmm. I like, so very cute.
Right?
Like, out of a romance novel.
Yes. I love the idea of like, oh, this hot guy who's like protesting, like, oh, he's cool. And like, you know, she doesn't, it's not like she's like immediately like, ooh, it's just she looks at him and she's like, all right, I'm gonna go take a nap by this tree. But like, then they have, Proma, what did you think of their relationship and their meeting?
Wish it was me, not important, but no, but I think that speaks to Bisha K. Ali in particular, like to the authenticity that she's brought to this show. Mm-hmm. If you've grown up watching Bollywood romance and stuff like that, this feels completely par for the course. They run into each other in like a field with these bright colors and during a time of intense duress for both of them. So it really, really fit. And then that, you know, when we first meet Hassan and he's like giving this monologue about freedom and about the Indian spirit, that to me felt easily like something out of an Indian movie that I have seen many, many times. So it was really cool to see. It was, again, incredible to see this actor portraying that and to see it integrated into the MCU, because that's like, it's just, you know, this show is a big part of this and about making the characters in the community feel normal. It's just like that it is. I'm not doing a good job explaining this at all, but I've grown up watching movies where everyone looks like this and they're having these conversations and living through these events and wearing these clothes and hearing this music. So nothing about that is particularly striking, but normalizing it in that way for the wider Marvel and Disney audience is frankly revolutionary.
Yeah.
To be like, look, here are these characters wearing these clothes and speaking in this language and living through this thing that you've probably never heard about, but we're not going to hold your hand and explain it to you. You're just going to relate to them and understand them on that level because you can, because that it's really, really well done, I think.
You know, it's funny. I have said that throughout this, that my biggest like point of like a thing that makes me happy about the series, they don't pause to explain to you like, this is what's going on. Like they don't have like oh, she needs to sit down and explain it to her friend who doesn't know. They just like keep going. And I really appreciate that.
Totally.
So they have their meet cute and we kind of breeze through it. Like we see that first she says no thank you to his invite, but then she takes it and then like she brings him a new cane that's like sturdier, and then we see that she's pregnant, and then the next scene is she has her baby, and I love her Kamala's grandmother so much that I was like, oh, that's her grandma. Like I like immediately was like, I want to protect this child with this cute haircut.
Toddler.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of like, I feel like I'm doing an injustice, but we do like kind of breeze through it, right? Yeah. Arezou, what did you think of like their meeting and everything?
I mean, I said earlier I would have happily watched 3 hours of these two, and I stand by that. I think like their meet cute, particularly in the garden where she threatens to like break his leg, and they have that kind of like that whole banter is, you know, I haven't seen a ton of sort of Bollywood movies and stuff like that, but as a huge romance reader, this is all straight out of all my favorite books. We've got the slight animosity in the banter that then kind of softens, and you kind of reach that understanding. Like the scene in the house when he's got the food and they're kind of getting to know each other, and he starts reciting poetry, like unfair, unrealistic expectations in men, but just this is like Proma said, God, I wish that were me. But so their whole meeting, it felt fast only in that I wanted so much more of it, and I would have happily lingered on this forever. And we don't ever have to talk about the clandestines again. Let's just watch these two raise their child. So
yeah, great.
That's how I felt about it. That's the show. It's just these two raising their daughter, and that would have been fine with me.
Everyone's happy. There's no problems.
But I will say, like, I like that the show kept so focused on the two of them, barely like outside of their house and garden.
Yeah. But
still very effectively communicated how everything around them is changing, and that kind of fire and fervor that Hassan managed to sort of stir up in everybody has kind of gone out of him because his priorities have changed now, and his priorities is family and not about upending the entire country for the sake of revolution, but also like that all of the hardship and the change is starting to get to him. And Aisha's like, well, this is better than what I had before, so I'm going to keep focusing on this. Whereas he sort of feels, I guess, torn by it. And then we see that later when the neighbor comes by and like how weary it's made him, I guess.
Yeah. Ashley, what did you think of them?
I'd have to say of course, Marvel keeps giving me men that don't exist, which I don't like. Like we can't keep doing this. And I also just saw Love and Thunder, so I'm just, this is why none of my relationships last longer than a few months, because you're not calling thunder and lightning for me, you're not writing poems for me, you're not crossing the moon. I don't know what's going on. Do you really care about me? Do you really love me?
Do you even like me?
Do you even like me? Like, Steve went back hundreds of years to his. What's going on here? But anyway,
bare minimum.
But yeah, no. That's why I was saying that that love story truly could have been an episode one, because I think we were getting so much of Kamala's. When I say backstory, it's like we're getting sort of the origin of like these powers and this bracelet to an extent, but also this foundation that is like what sets Kamala apart is that so much about her powers is her family itself, right? Her heritage. I don't just mean in the linkage to this bracelet or, you're a clandestine. I mean, like how her family has been from this love story that we're witnessing here all the way down to, her grandmother, her mother. We've been seeing it from episode 1, even, when we're still trying to understand that relationship between her mom and Kamala, just to fast forward to, where they are now. So it was just so much of it came from this like love story that I really honestly could have just watched the two of them up until her grandmother with the bracelet trying to find, her mom. And that was just heartbreaking. I couldn't do it. I wanted to catch her like, I'll save you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that, all right, this is gonna be my only critique, not with this scene. And then I keep bringing up about the fact that it could have been its own episode, but it's like this episode kind of left on like a cliffhanger-ish type of thing. And like I remember from our first episode of the pod for the cast for Ms. Marvel, I was like, I'm nervous about how they're gonna wrap it up together. And I feel like an episode where we see this story and then the next episode being that the clandestines end up basically getting defeated would have been a great way to wrap it up, and having, this moment of Kamala and her mom being able to see eye to eye. I love that her mom was able to see that she has powers, because like in the comics, a lot more superheroes have people close to them who know who and what they are, unlike what we've seen so far where everyone's trying to keep their identity hidden except for Tony Stark, basically. And I do wish they kind of had kept it like centered on Kamala's heritage, Kamala's story, the story of Aisha and oh my goodness, how am I forgetting
Hassan?
Let's say it's the love of my life. How did you forget his name already? And then and I really wish that they didn't leave us on the cliffhanger that they had. But that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. So she's pregnant, she has a baby. Then we get the scene of she meets Najma outside by the tree. And we talked about this, Ashley, remember in, what was it, episode 2 or 3 with the wedding, where she does have the turn where it's like, she was so nice to Kamala and then was like, oop, nope, coming to the wedding to kill you. I don't want to wait a day, even though you were going to help us. Like, this kind of like shows us that is how she is, right? Where she's like, cool, you have till tomorrow. That's it. And like, that's it. There's no like, she's not warning her. She's just telling her that's what it is. And like,
I wish they would have done a little bit more in giving us some insight on what the hell is waiting for them back to wherever it is that they're trying to get to. Because at this point, I'm like, can someone explain? You've had a child in this world. Clearly, it's not all that bad. Like you done found something, you found something to do. So it's like, I wish they would have explained, like when you see those movies of someone going back in time or like trying to get back somewhere, they're trying to get back to the love of their life. They're trying to get back to their children. They're trying to get, what they're going back to. I really wish in this episode we could see why it's like, I know they're just honing it in on she wants to go home, but it's like at this point, and it's like, because it's crazy to see that she came across Aisha and the fact that she built a family here. And when we meet Najma, we see that she built a family too.
Right.
You would think on some level she might even be sympathetic, like, damn, I killed her and now I also have a family I want to protect. And instead, she almost completely abandoned. Well, she still technically physically abandons her kid, but it's like, what the hell is wherever it is you're trying to go to that you are willing to just leave your child to be an orphan? Like, what's going on? So I just, when it comes down to her story, while it's great to see that, clearly this is her personality and this is who she is, I wish we got a little bit more background on like, what is this place all about that they're willing to destroy the entire planet for?
So we'll circle back to that because I do have I feel like Marvel does a thing, and I've definitely told this story before in the podcast. So like my whole life is the like a metaphor for me is like when I was a child, I loved stickers, but I never used them because I would always be like, I gotta save them for something good. And like I had this like drawer in this old dresser in our basement in my childhood home growing up where I would keep all of the stickers that were like the ones I was saving that were like the best ones. And then our fucking basement flooded and all of them got ruined. So like, I feel like Marvel does that sometimes where they're like I feel like they're keeping this a secret either for a reveal in the finale or like for later. And they often sometimes do that to their like, and it does some of the stories injustice where they're like, nope, we want to keep this for later. And it's like, why? We already have the Avengers. We have Tony Stark. We have Iron Man. We have Captain America. We have everybody. Like, stop saving things for later. And Marvel tends to do like, I asked before we started the recording. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a show that I loved and watched. And that show would the whole first season was them being like, well, that girl can't be a telepath because there's no way that exists in this universe. And it's like, come on. Why would we? There was an alien invasion in New York and there was like demigods and superhero. Like, why would we be like, well, that's too unrealistic? And then by season 3, it was like we had Inhumans and everyone had powers. So I feel like Marvel does that. And I'm wondering if they're doing that with them. But I hope, like, I want this story to be complete and not like left lingering in the air. So I don't know, but we'll get there when we get towards the end. Yeah, so we get the scene of them. Hassan basically tells Aisha that he saw her talking to Najma. He doesn't know who she is, but he, and that he's also very, again, unrealistic expectations for men. He's like very tender and sweet about it, right? He's not mad. He's just like, I can't keep up with you and you are running with our child. Tell me what's going on. And they like sit and calmly talk about it. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
Grown-ups acting like grown-ups. What a concept.
Right. The bar is so low that all of us are like, oh, a man who communicates. Wow. He's not like yelling or mad. Wow. Oh my God. But
where did you find my notes for this?
Right. And then we get the scene that we basically had been hearing about for most of the series, right? We get the scene where Aisha she splits up from them. Did she, because we didn't see Najma, but she knew she was there, right? Is that why she split up from them? Like she didn't want Najma to get them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got.
Because we get the scene of like, Sana is her grandma, right? The baby in this scene.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we get the scene of like Sana getting split up from that was the one part where I was like, oh, come on, Dad. When he's like, he just like looks and is like, wait, where's my child?
Yeah. To jump ahead, but he's also like at the same thing at the end, he's weirdly accepting. He's like, well, I guess Aisha's gone. And I'm like, sir?
Yeah.
I know. Like, it did kind of hit me because I was like, her body is just laying there on this pile of stuff.
Yeah. And there was a way to play that. I almost feel like they just didn't have time for it, where like there were people who got separated and who got lost in this migration and in like various other events in history, but he just seemed a little too chill about it. Like that's more of a thing now.
Okay, so that actually brings up my one critique of this episode is, and Ashley, we've been talking about this all season, and we talked about it with Moon Knight too, where it's like we were getting a good slower pace, and I like it, and then it, the last 2 episodes of Moon Knight, it was like, well, a lot of things are happening, and I'm worried about that with this because of exactly what you just said about Hassan was kind of just like, oh, all right, well, let's get on this train, and there wasn't, and even Kamala's mom being like, you're the light girl, and then just like being like, okay. I would have liked us, again, I mean, I felt the episode felt too short. Like I would have liked us to sit in those moments a little bit more. Not that I want to watch them crying over Aisha, but you know what I mean? Like I just a little bit more of like a pause for the moment,
Yeah, I just think it could have been a good like character beat that wasn't given, and that like they would have, like the actors would have done amazingly with, but it just wasn't given.
Yeah. But I will say the scene with Kamala and Aisha, that like, I for sure cried. I was like, man, I was even thinking like, I'm normally so grumpy about a flashback, but this is really well done. And like, everyone was like doing some great acting. And when Kamala realizes it, I thought, I don't know, I really liked that. Proma, what'd you think of that scene with Kamala?
I agree. I was almost like kind of like clutching myself as I realized around when she did that, like it was going to be Kamala, that it was never Aisha who saved Sana. And I was like, oh my God, we're doing it. We're doing a time loop. We're bringing like, I wasn't ready for time travel within this. I was like, okay, we'll get like traumatic flashbacks, other dimensions, etc. And then when you bring me into a time loop, like when you fuck with me in that way, like I watched Back to the Future at a very formative age. I simply can't handle it. So I was like, oh my God, same thing. Just like tears in my eyes. I was like, it was you the whole time.
Right.
I also like, I can't be objective about this show in the ways that I want to be. Kamala looks just like my cousin. So in some of these scenes when I'm watching her, like I was watching her lift up the toddler for some reason, I was like, this child is so much smaller than I thought she would be. And Iman Vellani, I think, is like pretty short too. And just like watching this small person pick up an even smaller person, I was like, I'm done. Can't do it. But really, again, beautifully done and like so well performed by her.
Yeah.
Also a really good toddler actor, which like I feel like isn't a thing I've ever said.
Really good toddler actor. Arezou, what'd you think of that scene?
I am not usually the kind of person who can guess where something is going. So last week when Kamala fell through time and wound up at the train station, I'm like, oh, she's the Trail of Stars. Like that was the first thing out of my mouth, because I'm like, it's not that they keep telling the audience this story, they keep telling Kamala this story over and over and over again. So I'm like, oh, she's gonna do it. So then when Aisha was like, telling her to make sure that Sana gets on the train, I'm like, here we go. I actually guessed something right for a change. I can't believe it. And then it happened. I was like, yes, I felt so vindicated and very excited. But yeah, I do like that it kind of looked, I don't know, when the circles broke up and became like smaller star-like shapes, part of me was almost wondering if that was Sana, like carrying it onward to her dad. Like, because Kamala fell over. I'm like, I don't think she's in charge anymore. I think this is like, because Sana's got a bangle as well. So
I thought that too. And again, that was a moment where I felt like the episode was a little unfinished in giving us the resolution.
Yeah. I thought that too. I was wondering, I actually thought like, oh, is she like using powers, or is that like Aisha, like she's dying, but she like gave them one last to something, because like you said, Kamala did fall over. So like she wasn't doing that part, right?
Yeah.
Question mark?
That's kind of what my lone frustration with the episode was, when they get back to the present and, Kamala's mom finds out about all this, and then Sana kind of brushes over it by going, oh, well, we're magic, or I can't remember exactly what she says, but I'm like, this would have been a moment to explain to your daughter that it's not that your head's been in the clouds, it's that you've had this knowledge forever. Yeah. And they just kind of glossed over it very fast, and Kamala's mom was totally ready to just gloss over it as like a quirk, like a family quirk. I'm like, well, no, you have a superpower bracelet. Like, now is the time to talk about it. But, and then by the looks of things, we're going back to New York, so I don't think they're ever going to talk about it.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not like just a big grump, because I was like, wait a minute. The mom was like, who was very stern about like not even touching the bracelet, was suddenly like, oh, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Also, Arezou, you pointed out something that has been bothering me for like growing in irritation for since the beginning, which is the fact that whenever Muniba talks about Sana, she's like, "Oh, my mother was like such a dreamer. She's always living in her fantasies." And I kept wondering, especially by like episode 4, I was like getting frustrated because I want to know what that means. Like it's a little too thin to keep carrying us as far as it has in the show. And then same thing in this episode where she's like, yeah, like we're all magic. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Give me a little bit of detail
like,
about this.
So far all we really know is that she saw the light and when she was a child, and I really was prepared for her to be like, yeah, I used to use that bracelet all the time. You know, just
same.
You know, and if we have, I mean, I don't know, stuff can still happen in the last episode. I do hope maybe we get like a sit down family moment. Although the way that this episode ended, I'm not confident in that. But like I definitely thought we were getting like this bracelet. This is why I sent the bracelet to you. It's protected me my entire life. Now it's your turn. And I was trying to figure out, you know, what made Kamala's mother so skeptic about something like that. Because I also thought they were going to say maybe she had used the bracelet at one point, but it failed her or something like that, which is why she completely, you know, removed herself away from it. And instead, we just got a, you know, 1 minute she's extremely stern, the next, oh yeah, my daughter has powers now. Okay.
Do you think she tried to use it to meet Bon Jovi?
I do love how New Jersey they're keeping it with Bon Jovi. But yeah, so we get I like cried when like you said, a very good toddler actor. Just she was just like, and the way Kamala was so tender with her when she's like, "You want to play a game? Okay, just step." I was like, this is precious. And then Kamala falls backwards. She realizes it's her. And did any of you watch the most recent season of Russian Doll?
I have not watched Russian Doll.
Wait, who said yes?
Proma. Yes.
Oh, Proma, yes. Did you like get that like a little bit of the vibe of season? Like I kept thinking of season 2 while watching this episode.
Honestly, I blew through that season and to the point where I blacked it out. But now that you're saying it, absolutely.
Right, because it's like about family, like generational trauma and how like she like tries to do something different, but then it was still like, you know what I mean? It like still happens.
And the time jumps and like saving the mother, the grandmother, etc. You're so right.
I kept thinking about that because I liked I know a lot of people didn't like season 2 of Russian Doll, but I liked it. I understand the like issues of like, well, we didn't really solve anything and we didn't explain anything. We just continued with more wacky time travel, but I liked it. I like when something's not about. Now I'm going to contradict. I said I loved the romance between the two of them. When something's not about romance, I'm like sold easier on it. Especially when it's like family, generational trauma, blah, blah, blah. That shit always does it for me. But so Kamala comes back to present day, right? And we see one of the clandestines there's like a rift that has opened, right? One of the clandestines touches it. She immediately gets covered in like a shiny rock and then turns into a skeleton and collapses, which is very goofy. But all I kept thinking was, this is what they did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the Inhumans. And I can't decide if I think they're going to reveal that or like, I don't know, because it looked so much the same. Like, that's how Daisy got her powers. Daisy emerged from that. Like, she turned to stone and then emerged with, like, not got her powers, but they were, like, made grander. I don't know. But like that was a sign that you're an Inhuman as you survive that. I don't remember in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. it was like something they touched as well, but I think it was like a statue or something. I don't know. So I'm wondering, because I still think there's no reason why they would bring specifically Anson Mount back as Black Bolt if they weren't gonna like do it right, if they weren't gonna like, or at least have the Inhumans exist. I kind of thought they would just never ever reference that show, but then they bring back the main character for like one of the biggest Marvel movies in a while. So I don't know. I'm curious, Ashley, what do you think about that?
I'm not putting too much stock in it just because at this point we're down to the last episode and they've basically established Ms. Marvel's story. So like, you know, I've been holding out hope that that the clandestine angle was going to be maybe like a hoax and them throwing us off. But now that we're at the last episode, I mean, I'll say that with Cameron getting his powers this way, it's possible someone else got hit, and maybe someone else is out there now, but I'm like, at this point, with me trying to be so optimistic about this being extended to other people and us not really it being so closely linked to the Jinn and Kamala's personal story, I'm not entirely positive. I guess they've made a pessimist out of me, so I'm like I'm like, I don't think it's happening.
Arezou, what do you think?
I completely lost my train of thought. Can you go to Proma and come back to me?
Promo.
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
I'm gaping like a fish.
It's a lot. It's a lot. No, I was just thinking that. I was like, I need to get all my thoughts straight. I do agree with Ashley in that I'm like, there's one episode left, and I'm just honestly, I would not advise them at this point. Not that it will change anything. To introduce something that big and that new in the finale episode of a show that, frankly and unfortunately, not enough people are watching.
Yeah,
it seems like a bit of a risky move, a fringe move. My galaxy brain theory that I've had since episode 2. In episode 2. Kamran and Kamala talk about, Kamala. There's so many pronunciations of this name out there in the world, and none of them are the one that I'm used to. But Kamran and Kamala talk in episode 2 about the Bollywood movie Bazigar, and I wrote a thing on IndieWire where I just went absolutely crazy with this reference. I was like, what a movie to choose to talk about. And this movie is about like family betrayal and fake identity and all of these things, which like I kind of wrote it somewhat as a joke when that episode came out. I was like, maybe this is the key to the series. But now that Najma is effectively dead, that Kamala could be blamed for that, and Kamran has powers, I could very much see him in the final episode wanting revenge on Kamala and her family for destroying his family and his world, which is effectively the plot of Bazigar. Which, if I am right,
really?
Yeah, Bazigar is about a guy who his family gets screwed over by like someone who his father used to work with, and they end up like destitute. They don't have their money. His father and sister die, and then he, as an adult, is like, I'm going to get this guy back. I'm going to get into his family. I'm going to marry his daughter. I'm going to kill everybody he loves. It's an absolutely insane movie. Insane, entertaining in some ways, but like objectively batshit. So like as soon as it came up, I was like, oh no, what does this mean? And I honestly I have one episode to be right about this theory, so I would really like that for me. But
I would also really like that for you, Prom.
Thank you. And then I'm going to be the one person on the internet who's like, I called this. So while
Listen,
it would be nice,
we love bragging rights on Twitter, so like I hope you get that.
Thank you. Let's put it out there in the universe. So it would be nice to get Inhumans, but I think this is not necessarily the time or the place. I think we've planted some good seeds that can be brought to fruition in the next show or movie or somewhere else.
Okay, I've got my thoughts together now.
All right, hit me. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think this is kind of going back to like what you said about the stickers. I think the Inhumans and this bigger scale story is like the sticker that they're getting ready to pull out to kind of keep the story going. And I feel like episode 6 is going to be that. I wish it weren't, because my favorite thing about this show has always been sort of the smaller, the family aspect, like the smaller, lower stakes and scale of it. Like she feels very friendly neighborhood Miss Marvel, which I loved. But I do think we're getting some form of Inhumans, me not knowing a ton about them, but I do think they're setting the stage to kind of make it much bigger, for better or worse. Okay.
Ashley, what do you think?
I don't really have any faith in them bringing Inhumans in anymore, unfortunately. I don't know. I if they do, I've completely lost faith that it's anytime soon. And I hope I'm wrong, but anyone who's been listening to us knows I've been talking about Inhumans since the first episode, because that is what Kamala is in the comics. So I definitely thought, but now that the series has basically, I mean, I don't want to say it's wrapped up, but like we are down to the last episode. So my faith has kind of been shook here. I mean, the Inhumans are linked to the Kree, which is what we're supposed to be getting in the Marvels. So I mean, there's this little bit of hope that maybe there's, they're saving this like link to the Marvels movie. But I mean, to not do that in the Miss Marvel show is definitely a choice. So I don't, I don't know. I feel like I'm just jumping through hoops to make it work. And at this point, I'm just like, all right, I don't know. I guess they decided to throw us a bone in Multiverse of Madness, and like, all right, you saw him die. Okay, I hope all your dreams go with him. That's exactly what they
say goodbye
right?
forever as it is exploded.
Exactly. That was it. Don't ask us for anything else again.
That is fair. So then we see that Najma thinks she can. What is she? I don't. So this is where I'm a little bit, because she's like, she thinks she can close it, but then like Kamala reminds her that like she has a son, and she just like, I guess, transfers her powers to him. But we hadn't really seen them use powers, had we? The clandestines, other than being like super strong.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
She initially wanted to go through. She wasn't even thinking about closing the veil.
Yeah.
And then with the reminder of her son, suddenly the switch flipped. And she's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll close it instead.
Yeah. I mean, see, this is and they really didn't explain what this veil can do in a sense of someone getting powers in our world.
Right.
Or maybe I missed it and didn't pay close attention to it when that was explained, because like, how do you just whisper someone's name?
Right.
And now they got these powers instead, it's like, is how, and then also the person before her turned to stone. So I'm like, help me to understand, how is it that energy can be, can kill one person, but then be transferred to someone else. I'm just like, they didn't explain that. It was just this magical thing that just happened randomly, and we just kind of went with it. I mean, I get it on some level that the bracelet being linked to this veil, and that's, Cameron basically has an extension of I don't want to say an extension, but his powers mirror that of Kamala's. But like, they're not really explaining this link enough for me to be like, oh, she went in, had this energy, and instead of using it to go home, she transferred it to her son. Like, I don't know how it worked. I don't get the magic / science here.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't think I'm not the first person who has said this for sure, but this definitely lines up with the fact that the series like ties to the MCU, or like need to connect to the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, is actually the weakest part of Miss Marvel specifically.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where I'm like, I could not care less about the clandestines specifically and their powers and their dimension and like who they are and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get back to. I just want to watch this teen have kick-ass like montages of becoming a superhero, and then like go back to school in Jersey City and just like and be in the Marvels. I'm excited for that part.
I've been saying that the first 2-3 episodes before things went really much more mystical. Like I would rather a flashback episode in itself of how the bracelet was passed down versus like we need to link it to this and that and the other, and then more so in terms of Kamala's story, her watching her be a student, watching her like try to dodge damage control, but doing it with like maybe ease eventually. Like that would have been way more fun to me before we started having like characters come in for like 20 minutes and then getting killed off and stuff like that. Like it was like, okay, we've taken I almost wish they had switched, like how Moon Knight stands on its own, like it hasn't been linked to anything really. Like we heard stuff that was familiar, but it was stood on its own. But they honestly could have done it linking that if they had wanted to, because I feel like Moon Knight could definitely appear with like Blade in them moving forward versus like Kamala's story. I think definitely, as you were saying, could have stood on her own, and then however the Marvels picks up, if I think they could have done like a Peter Parker thing when he saw Tony getting beat up with the aliens in Infinity War, like, oh, let me get out this bus and help him out, like versus just have Kamala see her hero in a fight, like I can help in the Marvels versus like whatever it is that they're trying to build up here.
I agree. That like, I love the scenes of her, and that's, so we just got good news today about Jessica Jones is probably coming back, because the Daredevil plot will be that in Echo will be that he's looking for Jessica. But like, that was a problem I had with Jessica Jones, where I was like, I love this character so much. Like I almost wanted more one-off episodes of like her getting hired to do like detective work within the Marvel universe. Like that's like interesting to me. And like she's so dynamic and wonderful. And I kind of feel that way about our little Miss Marvel. Like I like her doing teen shit. Like I like her like going to school and like, you know, which boy is she going to pick? And like I like the superhero aspect, but I like it not as a wider, grander, like alien, whatever, who knows, the clandestines. Like I like it as this teen girl who gets powers and is like in Jersey City and like going to school, going to mosque. And like, I like that.
Isn't Bruno supposed to be going to Caltech?
Yeah, right.
What's happening with all this? I guess Amar's like on his honeymoon. He's done.
Right. So yeah, then her mother and her grandma have found her because the cousin informed her mom about Find My Phone. And I was like, okay, now is when you tell her, this is why I pulled the fire alarm. Like, you can explain that to her so she's not mad at you anymore. But we did breeze over it a little bit, right? Like that's one of the things that bummed me out a little because I kind of wanted her and her mom to have like a big sit down talk to be like, every time you've been mad at me in the last few weeks or months, however much time has passed, like it has been because I've been like trying to save people. But I guess you can be like, she assumes, right? I guess.
They had the conversation in the car on the way back to the house.
But I think I like those actors, the two actors who, all the family are so well cast. And Kamala has really good moments with her mother. And I just think this could have been a really good moment with her mother where like, instead of her being like, you're the light girl. Okay. Could have been like, is that why weird stuff's been happening? You know what I mean? I would have liked a pause.
This contextualizes every conflict we've had for the past several weeks. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now I feel better. Okay, great. But so we end on, so Cameron has gotten his mother's powers. He goes to hide out with Bruno. And I don't think we had mentioned this before, but Bruno says his parents aren't around. Because that had been a question I had. I was like, does his family own this?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the podcast when we found it. Because I remember us thinking about when we first met him. I think either episode 1 or 2, we was talking about, is his parents around? Because it didn't look like it. So
yeah.
They talk about his grandma, like in episode 1 or 2, where the mom's like, oh, this is for your grandma, and like sends food with them.
Oh, okay. I do remember the mom sending food with him. I just didn't remember. See, so I'm glad someone was paying attention. And then we kind of end on a weird cliffhanger. I totally thought when Cameron sees him, when Bruno sees Cameron by the dumpster, I was like, oh no, is he gonna like, I thought maybe like because of the power transfer, he knew his mother had died. So he was like getting revenge. And I was worried about that. And I'm glad that wasn't the case.
Yet.
I
was literally just about to say, never say never. Because remember, he's under the assumption his mother's still alive. He literally says to Bruno, she would never abandon me. So we don't know
what she completely did.
Yeah.
God.
and was going to do it one way or the other. Had to be reminded she had a son by Kamala.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That's the biggest hole in my Bazigar theory is that I think that he's going to be like, oh, she wouldn't abandon me. Sorry, completely lost. There's something he said that was counter to that, that I don't think he would. I think he would feel betrayed by Najma instead of want revenge on Kamala.
That's fair.
Yeah, we'll see. It could go either way.
It really could. Yeah. And it ends so abruptly, right? Like, it felt like it was like, they was like, well, we hit that minute mark. We got to cut the episode. There we go. Because it's like he sees a drone outside and the drone blowing up the bodega felt, even for this like shady government organization, that felt kind of like a lot. I don't know. I feel like stupid even saying that about the government.
Your name is literally damage control.
Right.
Yeah. How are you doing that and you blowing up buildings? Are you not, is your whole purpose not supposed to be to like not have the regular people seeing this? Like, if I gotta be worried about you destroying shit, you might as well just let Thor be the one to do it.
Here's my conspiracy theory that they blew that up because they followed Kamran there. They know he's what do they call him? Like an enhanced individual. Mm-hmm. They need a reason to start investigating Kamala. So if they blow up the store and it's like we followed the enhanced individual here, he blew up the store, then that gives them that jurisdiction because it's like he blows up their their drone. Yeah. So there's no record of what happened. They can just move in, and we know they're shaky like that. So that's my conspiracy theory.
I buy your theory.
Control could be Kree.
Ooh,
because maybe. At this point, I'm just like, this is so suspect. Like
at this point, I think by the time that the Marvels come out, we're gonna just be like, by the time that the Marvels comes out, I think we're just gonna be like, everyone is Kree, unless that's basically what Secret Wars is.
That's basically what Secret Wars is about, right? That the power may have been Kree the entire time. But I'm just like watching their actions, especially in this show. They're not giving people who really are concerned about like. We don't want regular people knowing about this, or we don't want them getting hurt, or because it's like, this originally started with her at a cosplay contest or at Avenger Con, and she does a whole thing, and they're like, bring her in. And I'm like, there was a robbery down the block just now, and you're concerned about someone playing, Sparkles and going viral about it. So it's just like, is it possible that this is Kree and they're looking for people with abilities to use? I'm just trying, because I'm like, if this is really a government agency who truly is concerned about like helping in any way, even if they're not, like y'all are doing a piss poor fucking job with it. So
you got to anchor it in reality somehow,
I mean, well, then that tracks, right? It's a government agency doing a piss poor job. Well, then, all right.
Sure.
All right. Well, I guess we're at the end now. Arezou, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, I mentioned it a little earlier, was definitely Hassan and Aisha in the house when she first comes over. Because it's like, romance is a big draw for me when it's done well. I think a lot of times, especially in bigger like Marvel media, it's kind of just shoehorned in there because we need a love interest. But like genuine romance, genuine chemistry is always such a plus for me. And that they let this moment kind of linger and be unabashedly romantic was not something I was expecting.
You just like it pinpointed exactly why I never like romance in most of the Marvel stuff, because it really is like, oh yeah, they're a couple and you're just supposed to like go with it, right?
Yeah, and like I as somebody who loves romance so much, I'm like, this is not what I want. Like, you're just telling me, it's like all the energy of slamming two Barbie dolls together. I'm like, that's not romance, but this was romance.
Yeah.
Hassan and Aisha was romance.
Yeah,
I was going to say to that end, Love and Thunder in theaters Friday.
I'm going to see it tonight after this recording. Proma, what was your favorite scene?
As usual, I'm going to be very biased towards my entire history and personhood, which is the introduction to Hassan when Aisha is running and she catches him in the village and he's giving that monologue about freedom. It's also, I was blown away by the opening montage with the actual speech from when partition happened and the little history lesson which felt not shoehorned in, but just like appropriate and just enough background.
Yes.
So I think that into seeing him and then seeing and hearing Fawad Khan again, just like, you can also, like, I personally, like, I can always tell when someone's not a native speaker of Hindi or Urdu in a show like this. Like, there have been moments in previous episodes where someone's speaking and I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it slide, but like, it sounded off to me and we don't need to fixate on it, but I noticed.
Right. Yeah.
And just having him come in and be speaking just gorgeous, fluent Urdu and doing a great job and acting the hell out of it was such a treat. I'm so glad, and I hope that he breaks through and is in every single Hollywood thing now because he deserves it.
Ashley, what was your favorite scene?
Baby Sana, walking on Miss Marvel's powers.
Like yeah.
And then her like disc turning into little things of light for her to follow. Because we've been hearing about it, but like obviously, like actually seeing it like come to fruition, and that child actress was, I don't know. I mean, they need to figure out how to just create an Emmy for her specifically. She deserves it. But no, that scene was really beautiful from an episode that, deals with a pretty tragic story, although also, a love story. It is dealing with some events that actually happened. So to see that sort of light, both figurative and literal, was like, it's like, wow, we've been hearing about this for 5 episodes now, and like now it's like to see that linkage. I think they did a good job of bringing that all together.
Yeah. I think my favorite scene was Kamala meeting Aisha. I liked that moment so much, and I liked her realizing it was her that actually saves her grandma. Like, I love a full circle moment. And this felt like, oh, the series was this, like, more so than the conflict or the powers. Like, this felt like this was what we were leading to for the series. It's like this moment of like full circleness of like, shit, we've been hearing about this the whole time. And like, I don't know, that I think that's like really great storytelling. What grade do we give this episode, Arezou?
Despite my small critiques, A+.
Proma?
A+.
Proma?
I guess incorporating the small critiques, A-. I feel bad about it.
Ashley?
Yeah, I'd probably go A-. If I'm being honest with you, if they did it end it the way that it did, and us having to know we have 1 episode to deal with that, I think I'd be more like confident in like, oh, this is coming together. But other than that, those small critiques, I think the episode was overall definitely, in my opinion, the strongest so far. So I would give it an A-.
Ashley, thank you for setting up exactly for me to be able to say, I feel the same way as Ashley does, because yeah, it's like the fact that there's 1 episode left and I'm like, shit, wait, like we still like, we have to do the finale, and like the emotional beats worked so well in this episode. And it's like, oh, but we still have 1 more episode and we have to wrap everything up. Oh, fuck. That makes me go A-. But yeah, I thought this episode was like truly fantastic. If you all... Thank you. Wait, first, let me say thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for listening. If you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can find us on social media at SlayerFestX98. You can support us on Patreon. We're going through Harley Quinn Season 2 and What If, but we just did a Stranger Things Season 4 free to everyone Patreon episode if you want to check that out. We have Umbrella Academy and Obi-Wan episodes coming up. And if you want to follow me, I am at Ian X Carlos. Arezou, where can everyone find you on social media?
The best place to find me on social media is on Twitter at Arezou Amin. You can find me around the web, writing and editing at Collider. I also manage a website called The Geeky Waffle and host a Star Wars focused podcast on their network called Space Waffles.
Oh, nice. Proma, where can everyone find you and your writing?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm Proma What Up, Proma What Up, just spelled normally, not like any cool hip way. My writing is all over IndieWire. I'm particularly on the nerdy like Marvel, Star Wars, Stranger Things, all of that beat. So you will definitely find me covering those types of things if that's what you're interested in. I also have a production company called Lion Party Films. We make sketches, comedy videos, music videos, dance videos, really all kind of just videos. If you like videos, they're all, they're all created by South Asian women, produced, written, if like the talent often is South Asian. So it's really cool. Check it out.
Nice.
We're out there on YouTube, Instagram, etc. We have a very minimal, sad Twitter presence, so maybe not that.
Well, then people should follow you so that you can have a larger following.
Yeah, follow me and I'll point you to the right direction.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. And next week. Oh, wait, Ashley. Yes, Ashley, where can everyone find you? Good Lord.
But to be fair, they've heard it for what? A couple months now. So it's like, what's different, right? Anyways, Ashley K. Smalls, TikTok, Twitter. Join Marvel Fans Assemble. That's really the only thing I cared about to be promoting. Join my Twitter community called Marvel Fans Assemble. You could just look it up and you should be able to join. Spoiler free until this weekend, but if you're looking for a place to talk about Love and Thunder or obviously the new Ms. Marvel episode, you can do that starting. Well, you can talk about Ms. Marvel anytime. There's no spoiler ban there, but Love and Thunder, please come through on Monday and we can talk everything because I have things to say. But that's it.
All right, cool. Well, we will see you, Ashley and I will see you all next week for the Ms. Marvel finale. Bye, everyone.
Bye.